Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all today.
Good afternoon.
How you
Good
guys
afternoon,
doing?
everybody. Very good. Thank
Good,
you.
thank you.
Good. Good to have you guys here together for one more meeting. As you guys know from the message that I posted, we have a new Condo Rider. And there are a few changes that we need to be aware of. And John is here with us. John, thank you again for helping us with those legal matters. And I'm gonna let John to present those changes. All right, John, it's all up to you, my friend. Thank you again for being here, my friend.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Melinda. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing
Hi, John.
well.
Hello.
Take the screen.
Hi, John.
Hi.
I'm going to make you host so you can share your screen.
Okay. I'm the host. Okay, so let's go to Adobe. Okay. Does everyone see this? This is the
Not
Condo
yet.
Rider. Everyone
Now we
see
do.
this? Okay. All right, so March 20th, about 11 days ago, the Florida Association of Realtors and the Florida Bar came out with the new condominium rider. And here it is. Now, a lot of you are going to be saying that looks exactly like the one that there was. And you would be correct. The only addition that was made to this condo rider is under paragraph 10, which is right here. The old condominium rider looked like this. Paragraph 10 with just the governance form as a disclosure. The new condominium rider added 2 additional disclosures: the milestone inspection report summary and the structural integrity reserve study. Now, just as a matter of reference, just so you know what the governance form is, that is this document. This is a 5-page document prepared by the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. Basically, this document talks about the role of the board of directors and the role of the unit owners. It's a standard form document. You can get it online anywhere, or you can send me an email. I'll be happy to send it to you. So that's the governance form. So now let's go back to the Condo Rider and let's talk about what the milestone inspection report summary is. It says that pursuant to section 718-5032A5 of the Florida statutes, buyer who has entered into this contract is entitled, at seller's expense, to receive from the seller before the sale of the property a copy of the inspector prepared summary of the milestone inspection report as described in section 553.899 and 718-3014P of the Florida statutes, if applicable, and the summary has been submitted to the association. So, wow, that's a lot of stuff in one paragraph. So let's actually find out what the milestone inspection report summary is. So we'll go to section 553.899. And I need to be able to move this thing over. Okay, put this on the bottom. Okay. 553.899 of the Florida statutes talks about milestone inspection, and it says it means it's a structural inspection of a building, including an inspection of the load-bearing walls and the primary structural members and primary structural systems, as those are defined in 627, by a licensed architect or engineer authorized to practice in this state for the purposes of attesting to the life safety and adequacy of the structural components of the building, and to the extent reasonably possible, determining the general structural condition of the building as it affects the safety of such building, including determination of any necessary maintenance, repair, or replacement of any structural component of the building. Okay, so there seems to be a pattern here of a word that is repeated many times in this paragraph, and that's structural, right? So obviously this is in response to the tragedy that happened in Surfside. The structure of that building had deteriorated, which caused the collapse. So what this inspection does is it inspects the structure of the building. Now, what are they actually inspecting? So the Condo Rider says that this is pursuant to 553-899 and also 718-301-4P. So let's go there. There we find out exactly what they're inspecting. The roof, the structure, including the load-bearing walls and primary structural members and primary structural systems, as are defined as 627. So the structure of the load-bearing walls, fireproofing and fire protection systems, elevators, heating and cooling, plumbing, electrical systems, swimming pool or spa, seawalls, pavement and parking areas, drainage systems, painting, irrigation systems, and waterproofing. So that's what's all included in the inspection. Okay, so we know what it is, we know what it inspects. Now for our closing and for the contract, we go back to the Condo Rider. And we need to find out, it says, if applicable. All right, so does this even apply to our sale? If you're the listing agent, or if you're the buyer's agent, does it apply to this association? So we go back to section 553-899. And here it tells us if it's applicable. Number one, we can start right here and says it does not apply to single family homes. So it's only for condos. We go back up to subsection 3, it's for condos and also co-ops. And it says they must have a milestone inspection performed for each building that is 3 stories or more in height by December 31st of the year in which the building reaches 30 years of age, based on the date of occupancy for the building, and every 10 years thereafter. Now, here's an important part for us on the southeast part of Florida and on the beach. If the building is located within 3 miles of a coastline, the association or co-op must have a milestone inspection performed by December 31st of the year in which the building reaches 25 years of age, based on the date of certificate of occupancy, and then every 10 years thereafter. So 3 years, if you just kind of want a general estimate of what that is, that's basically from the beach to I-95, if you want kind of a general idea of what 3 miles is. So now that would be, I actually am on a condo on the beach, and our building was built in 2005. So it doesn't apply to this. But if you're building, or if the building was built by 1998, then that's 25 years. If it's on the beach, then this inspection must have been done by the association. And then you would ask the association for a copy of that report. Now, the association is going to say whether they received it or not. So it's not only that the inspection report has been done, or maybe they're in the process of doing it, but it needs to be applicable and the summary has been submitted to the association. So maybe it hasn't been submitted yet. So what do you need to know as a listing agent? If it is applicable, then you need to contact the association. I recommend doing it by email and saying, please send me a copy of the milestone inspection report summary. By the time that happens, it's been about a week or so. Some associations hopefully are up to speed with this information. Some may not be. You might want to just tell them if they're not aware of it, since it's still pretty new, that you can send them a copy of the condominium rider and say, hey, look at section 10B. It says that the buyer is entitled to this report. Please send it. Now, here's the other thing with the word entitled. It means the buyer can receive it if they want it, similar to the governance form, right? I'm pretty sure not a lot of people are submitting the governance form to the buyer because it's not something that buyers request. They don't really care about. So it's only if the buyer requests it, then you, if you're a listing agent, must get it from the association. So buyer's entitled to it and seller must get it. Now, seller's expense, just like with condo docs, I mean, you're not actually paying for the inspection. The inspections cost tens of thousands of dollars, but you're just the seller's expense. If the association charges, I don't know, charge you $50 or $100 for a copy of it, seller has to pay for it. Okay, so that's the milestone inspection report summary. And now we're going to really quickly touch on the structural integrity reserve study, and then we can take some questions if there are any. So, what is the structural integrity reserve study? That basically is kind of like what it sounds. It's a newly developed form of reserve study required by the Florida Statute 7B4D that is designed to ensure that condo associations are reserving funds for long-term maintenance and necessary replacement of critical structural, here's that word again, elements of the building. So a reserve study, just like it sounds, is, let's say the roof is good for 20 years, and to put a new roof on, the association costs $200,000. They would basically, the reserve study would divide 200,000 by 20 years, and then divide that by the number of unit owners in the building, and that's everyone's prorated share. And they would do that for all of the items that require being fixed in the near future. So the roof, the elevators, basically things that are not in the budget. These are additional items, and that's what would be in the reserve study. Again, it says here that you can ask the association for it. If the association has it, great, they'll give it to you, but the association might not have it. It says here, or a statement that the association has not completed a structural integrity reserve study. So that's why an email here would be good to the association asking for the reserve study, and they might say, sorry, we don't have one. And then you would forward that email on to the buyer. So that's the new Condo Rider, basically 2 additional reports that the buyer is entitled to if they request it. If they request it, you have to get it if it's available and applicable. If they don't request it, technically you don't have to get it. Now, if you're a buyer's agent, should you request it? Sure. I mean, you always want to protect your buyers, so you can ask the listing agent to provide those. Number one, you might want to check if it is applicable, to check when the building was built. You don't want to be unaware of when the building was built. And then you'd get these reports and you'd give it to the buyer. What they do with it is up to them. I'm sure these reports are going to be really in-depth and quite long. It's going to be talking about how structurally sound the buildings are. And if there are repairs needed, most likely the association, after receiving a milestone inspection report, will hire an architect to find out how much it's going to cost to repair. and they're probably do the repairs if they're not doing them already. I know my building, we did an inspection, even though we didn't have to, and there are things that need to be fixed, and they're fixing it now, and they're passing an assessment, and we all have to pay for it. So it's good to ask for it just to cover yourself and give it to the buyer and let the buyer make a decision on their comfort level of what the report gave. So that's the Condo Rider. And if you guys have any questions, we can take them now, or if Arlindo, would like to add anything to, please feel free to.
Yes, let me add something that is our responsibility as agents. Number one, as John very well explained, if the house is not 3 miles from the coast, 30 years, and that means any property built prior to 1993. So then you write it down the year. So if the house was built after 1993, then that thing doesn't apply. If
Condo, Orlando, just to clarify, condo, right? Not houses. Houses,
Condo,
these are
yes, just
condos.
condos. Correct, correct. Thank you. And if the condo is within the 3 miles, then it's all property built prior to 1998. So anything after 1998, you don't need to request that to the association. That's number one. Two, John said to request to the association in writing through emails. Now, that conversation needs to be part of the package. When you send it to me, the contract, the condo rider, and all the documentation related to this transaction, please forward the email as well, so we can keep that in file. Remember, the buyer has 5 years to file a complaint. So we need to keep the file for 5 years. If 2 years from now, the buyer says, oh, you never gave it this to us, so we have the email that proves that you request from the association said that they don't have it. You forward that email to the buyer's agent, and the buyer's agent said it's okay, the buyer will proceed with the purchase. Then they cannot come after you guys because you never send it. All right, so these things are very important. Number one, repeating again, more than 3 miles, any condominium built prior to 1993. Within 3 miles, any condominium built prior to 1998. And all the conversation must be kept in file. So meaning you need to send it to me. All right. Now, John, question to you, very important. If the association says they don't have it, the buyer has the right not to proceed. If the buyer says, oh, I don't care, I will proceed it. Is that okay? Because it says we must provide it. We must provide it if the association has it. If the association doesn't have it, how the must is going to be applied.
Yeah, it's very interesting where they put these 2 additional items. They didn't put it under 5B, right? Which gives the buyer 3 days to cancel the contract. They put it under section 10, which just says the buyer is entitled to receive it. So it's not a must, surprisingly. It's basically a disclosure that the buyer is entitled to receive. And once they receive it, that's it. They can, there's no decision here. Obviously, if they're smart, they'd want to receive it during the right to cancel and inspection period. But surprisingly, it's put here in paragraph 10, and it just says that the buyer is entitled to it. And once they get it, there's no right to cancel. It's not under paragraph 5B. So
but what if
it's
they
more
don't
of a,
get
just
it?
a disclosure, which is interesting.
Okay. What if they don't get it?
Well, if they ask for it and we don't provide it, then I would say the seller is in breach, because they're entitled to receive it. It says here, you're entitled to receive it. So if the buyer asks for it and the seller does not provide it, that's a seller breach.
But the seller didn't provide because the association doesn't have.
Okay, so then that goes back to if the association, number one, if it's applicable, and number two, for the milestone inspection report if the association has a copy. If they don't have a copy, then this section says that there's nothing to give the buyer, so the seller is not in default. And the same thing for the structural integrity reserve study, if the association has a copy. If they don't have a copy, there's nothing to give to the buyer, and then the seller is not in default.
All right, great. Anyone has other questions? Tamara, you
So-
all have questions?
Yeah, I'm just make myself clear. Do we need to tell buyer that we have this new two things in the Condo Rider and then in title, or just let them read?
Yeah, so definitely you need to start using this new condominium rider. And do you, yeah, I always like disclosure. I like to disclose everything, put it all on the table. So like Arlindo said, they don't come back to you later and say, hey, this association, they're telling me that there might not be structurally sound or whatnot. So I would, especially now, and especially in South Florida, I would say here's the condominium rider. And if you want, there's some inspection reports and reserve studies that you're entitled to. Would you like me to ask the association for copies of those for you, in addition to the condominium docs?
Okay, yeah.
But I would ask, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But remember, when you ask it, for sure, they're gonna say, yes, I want to request.
No,
Okay,
not every time. I don't think everybody will ask for that, but
Make sure
they
when-
might. Yeah.
Make sure when you ask the question to tell them that the association may not have.
Yeah, if we receive the email from association, they don't hear it.
We can request it, but because this is something fairly new, there are chances and huge chances that the association won't have those reports.
Yeah, correct. Mhm.
I have a question, John, Michael. When this started?
This started, you'll see here on the bottom of the Condo Rider, March 20, 2023.
So if you have any contract before this, so it's not applicable, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you,
One
John.
more thing that it's important, based on what you asked, the form simplicity already update the version of the Condo Rider. If you have any old version of the Condo Rider on your computer that you use it, please don't use that anymore. Use only the version that is available on Form Simplicity, because that is the version that is available now on Form Simplicity. So don't use the old version, because if the signature on the contract is after that date, March 20, then the Condo Rider has to be that one, not the previous one.
I have one more question to John. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, oh my gosh, forgot the question. Oh yeah, I did forget it. Just give me a second. Forgot.
Yeah, sure.
Question in the meantime.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
Hi, Isis.
When it says that the 3 miles from the coastline, because I live on Miami Beach and a lot of the places that I look at are here on Miami Beach. So it's basically all of Miami Beach within that 3-mile radius? Or
Yes.
is it the coastline only, or does it also, because there's a lot of little finger islands that are just basically 1 or 2 blocks wide, and they have bay in the back and bay in the front, and they're like 3-4 blocks from west of Collins Avenue, which would be the coastline, but then there's a lot of little canals and bay areas in between.
The definition is the median line from the beach, which is the coast. So it doesn't say bay. So from the ocean, let's say 3 miles in. And 3
That
Mile
would encompass all of Miami Beach, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Which basically means 25 years instead of 30 years. And the reason they do that, as I'm assuming, is the salt water and the salt air can deteriorate the rebar and the concrete faster than if it was farther away. So
Well, I'm
that's-
assuming it's all stemming from the Surfside building that collapsed.
That's correct, yes. And I've been told that this is the first version. They're still working on additional laws and things they need to pass, but it's a little bit more complex. So they wanted to get this one out quicker, which is the inspections and whatnot. And I believe they're still working on other laws, but those haven't passed yet. So this is the first version of what's coming out as a result of that tragedy, yeah.
So like before, because the properties that I have are basically all 40 years and then 10 years after that. So that's basically changing that to 25 and 30 as opposed to the original 40 and then 10.
That's correct, yes.
But remember
And then
one
it
thing.
continues 10 years, and it continues every 10, 10 years after. It's just that the baseline for 40 years has been changed to 25 and 30.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
And remember, 2-story building doesn't apply, only 3 and up.
Okay, yeah.
There's
Well,
a lot of buildings on that you're working with in Miami Beach that they're 2-story. That
Well,
policy
I have-
doesn't apply.
Okay, so I have two-story buildings and I have 1-story buildings. Yet they
doesn't apply.
require them for all. Presently, I'm undergoing 3 of them.
John, I let
When you say
answer
they're requiring them for all,
Exactly. I have they're all 4plexes and they're all 1-story or 2 stories max, and they're all 4 units. Only one of them is 6. But for the last however many years, 30 years, we did the 40-year, the 10-year, and then 10 years after that subsequently. And I'm presently undergoing the 10-year inspection for all those, even though they're only 1 and 2 stories. So the city of Miami Beach does not require it for houses and duplexes, but anything 3 apartments and up, regardless of how many stories, they require the 40-year inspection and the 10-year after for these properties.
right, okay, so that's a good point, that's correct. The 40-year is still in place for 2 stories and below. This new law for 30 and 25 years is applicable to 3 stories and above. So they're still inspecting the smaller buildings, but they still have that 40-year instead of this shortened period of time, yes.
And the houses and the duplexes are does not apply at all, correct? It's still
That-
like that?
That's
So houses
correct.
and duplexes, no, the houses and duplex do not require that inspection. And then the 40, so then for the 4plexes and below, it would be the 40 years and every 10 years. And this would apply for 4 stories and
3
higher?
stories and
I'm sorry, 3 stories and higher. Does it matter how many units?
no,
So let's say you have like a 3-story house.
3-story house right here is not applicable because a 3-family
condo.
dwelling and 3 or fewer have no stories above. So 3-story house, no. So
So it's a
basically,
3-family dwelling, so it would be a minimum of 3 units,
okay, yeah,
right? Right.
yes,
Yes. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
yeah, absolutely.
Tamara, did you remember your question?
Yes, yes, I do. Yeah, I'm just curious, if buyer doesn't want to request these documents, do we need a confirmation from the buyer in email or text, like he's saying, oh, I don't need that documents? Or we don't?
CYA, Tamara, CYA, cover yourself. So, okay, this email is just confirming that you're not requesting the additional documents under paragraph 10 of the Condo Rider.
Get everything in writing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, good, thank you.
Okay, as we move forward, this is something new, so if you have any additional questions or comments, feel free to contact myself or Arlindo. As you know, we're always here for you guys, and feel free to reach out to us.
Great. No more questions?
No, great. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you
great.
for
Guys,
telling us.
thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Keep
Thank you
that
very
in
much.
mind. If you have any question, like John said, give me a call, or give John a call. John is always available to help us. John, one more time, guys, thank you very much for being here with us and help us with those legal matters. We appreciate your participation and your help. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you,
Always here.
guys.
Thank you, Arlindo. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. All right.